This is Kenya, and it's a long way from the Appalachian Mountains where I was born. I've been here for a few months, and while the people are friendly and the food is delicious, sometimes I get a little homesick. I'm in stage three of what psychologists would refer to as the models of cross cultural adjustment, the adjustment phase. I'm starting to fit in with the new community, and let me tell you, Naoma Choma with some kachumbari makes for a delicious dinner, but sometimes you want that edible reminder of your past to anchor to. Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into something really close to my heart, the food traditions of Southeastern Kentucky, where I grew up in McCreary County. There's something special about Appalachian cooking that goes way beyond just filling your belly. These dishes tell the story of the people, the land, and the generations of making do with what you've got. I still remember my mama's kitchen, that smell of cornbread in a hot cast iron skillet, beans that had been simmering all day, and if we were lucky, a chicken and dumpling dinner that would make you want to slap somebody, as the saying goes. But what makes Southeastern Kentucky food what it is today? According to folklorist Ronnie Lundy in her seminal work Victuals, Appalachian cuisine represents one of America's most distinct and diverse traditions, a beautiful mashup of cultures that settled these mountains. Let's break it down a bit. The foundation of Southeastern Kentucky cooking comes from several distinct influences. First, you've got the Native American contribution, particularly Cherokee and Shawnee traditions. Anthropologist Darrell Barksdale writes that these communities introduced settlers to local game, herbs, and most importantly, corn cultivation, which remains the backbone of the region's cuisine. Then came the Scots-Irish settlers in the 18th centuries, bringing their traditions of preserving meats, making whiskey, and their love for hearty, simple dishes that could sustain hard physical labor. African American culinary traditions also deeply shaped the region's foodways. Food historian Michael Twitty points out in his research that techniques like deep frying, the use of greens, and barbecue methods all have roots in African cooking traditions that became integral to Appalachian food culture. And we can't talk about Southeastern Kentucky without acknowledging how the mining industry shaped not just the economy, but the food. When the coal mines boomed in the early 20th century, they brought new populations and food influences. Miners needed portable energy, things that were energy-dense foods that could sustain them through grueling shifts underground. Historian Ronald Eller notes in his book, Miners, Mill Hands, and Mountaineers, that company towns often had limited food options at the company store, driving a culture of self-sufficiency where families grew gardens and preserved as much food as possible. All these influences converged to create what we now recognize as Southeastern Kentucky cooking. Resourceful, flavorful, deeply seasonal, and built around staples that could be preserved, stretched, and shared. So grab yourself a mason jar of sweet tea and let's dig deeper into the dishes that define this unique culinary landscape. Let's talk about the MVPs of Southeastern Kentucky cooking, the dishes you'd find on pretty much any family table throughout the region. First up, and I know I'm biased here, but chicken and dumplings. The version I grew up with in McCreary County featured fluffy drop biscuit style dumplings. If you like those rolled things that look more like noodles, what my mama calls slickers, then are you even Southern? Just turn in your membership card now. At me in the comments if you disagree. Sociologist Stuart Clifford, who spent years documenting Appalachian foodways, notes that chicken and dumplings became especially important during the Great Depression and subsequent tough economic times in coal country. A single chicken could be stretched to feed a large family when enveloped in a sea of dumplings, making the dish both practical and deeply comforting. Then there's pinto beans, or soup beans as we call them, often cooked low and slow with a piece of fatback or ham hock traditionally, and more often just bacon these days. They'd simmer on the stove all day, filling the house with the unmistakable aroma. Food anthropologist Lucy Long writes that beans represent the sustainable protein source that allowed many Appalachian families to survive lean times. But what goes with beans? Cornbread, of course. Specifically, skillet cornbread, made with yellow cornmeal, no sugar, and crispy edges from the searing hot cast iron you'd pour the batter into. This isn't that sweet, cakey, northern-style cornbread. In southeastern Kentucky, cornbread is serious business. And you can always eat the leftovers crumbled into a glass of cold milk. What's your preference for this? Sweet or buttermilk? Fried green tomatoes represent the waste not spirit of Appalachian cooking. Why wait for tomatoes to ripen when you can enjoy them earlier? Sliced thick, dredged in cornmeal, and fried until golden, these tart, crispy treats showcase the innovative spirit of mountain cooking. They've even received some upgrades since those early days. Try them on a chicken biscuit with some goat cheese sometime. Now, let's talk barbecue, specifically Kentucky-style barbecue. While Western Kentucky might be more famous for its mutton barbecue, Southeastern Kentucky has its own traditions centered around pork shoulder and hickory smoking. And around here, the sauce is sweet and smoky, not the vinegar or mustard base the Carolinas or the mayo stuff from Alabama. Culinary historian Laura Smith of the Appalachian Food Summit points out that community gatherings like churches, homecomings, decoration days at cemeteries, and family reunions were often centered around barbecue traditions. These weren't just meals, they were community bonding rituals. And let me tell you, you've not experienced a barbecue gathering until someone digs the pig out of the hot coals and starts carving it up. Pig roast. Other staples worth mentioning are stack cake with apple butter filling, leather britches or shucky beans, which are dried green beans, killed lettuce wilted with hot bacon grease. One thing that ties all these dishes together, they represent a cuisine born of necessity but perfected with care, where nothing goes to waste and flavors are built together through time and technique rather than fancy ingredients. Food in southeastern Kentucky has always been about more than just sustenance. It's about identity and community and resilience. Growing up in McCreary County, I witnessed firsthand how food brought people together, especially during challenging times. Reunions, church suppers, or the freezer full of food you ended up with when people came to express their condolences for a loved one's passing all featured food. Sociologist Emma Kahn, who conducted extensive fieldwork in Appalachia, writes that food traditions in southeastern Kentucky serve as cultural anchors during periods of economic transition. When mines closed and jobs disappeared, these shared foodways provided continuity and comfort. The modern story of southeastern Kentucky food is complicated. On one hand, the region faces significant food security challenges. According to recent studies from the Appalachian Regional Commission, parts of southeastern Kentucky qualify as food deserts, with limited access to fresh produce in grocery stores. The decline of coal and manufacturing has left many communities struggling economically, which directly impacts food access. Nutritionist Dr. Valerie Horn, who works in eastern Kentucky, points out the irony that a region with such rich food traditions now faces some of the highest rates of diet-related health issues in the country. But there's a powerful revival underway. Across southeastern Kentucky, people are reclaiming and celebrating their food heritage. Community gardens are sprouting up, teachers are teaching the younger generation the self-sufficiency their grandparents practiced out of necessity, and farmers markets are creating new economies around local food. Organizations like Appalachian Food Summit are documenting and preserving traditional recipes and techniques. Meanwhile, a new generation of chefs is reimagining mountain cuisine, keeping its soul intact while bringing fresh perspectives. Take Chef Travis Milton, who's dedicated his career to elevating Appalachian cuisine while honoring its roots, or the work of Grow Appalachia, which helps families establish sustainable gardens using both traditional and modern methods. What's particularly exciting is seeing young people embrace these traditions. Social media accounts dedicated to Appalachian cooking are gaining followers, with TikTok videos showing how to properly season a cast iron skillet or make the perfect dumplings go viral, or why salmon patties were a weekly fixture at the dinner table. For me, making my mama's chicken and dumplings or a skillet of cornbread isn't just cooking, it's an act of cultural preservation. It's remembering who and where we're from. And every time I taste those flavors from my childhood in McCreary County, I'm connected to generations before me who made do, made delicious, and made community through food. And every time I eat KFC, available even here in Kenya and founded less than 40 minutes from where I grew up, I remember my great-grandmother's fried chicken was always better. She would bring this big metal bowl full of fried chicken that she raised herself to the yearly church reunion, and every year she would come home with an empty bowl while others would take home nearly full buckets of KFC that no one ever touched. I really wish I had her recipe. The story of southeastern Kentucky Foodways isn't finished, it's evolving. And as long as people gather around tables to share beans and cornbread, tell stories, and pass down recipes, this unique culinary tradition will continue to nourish both bodies and souls for generations to come. Hope this journey through the foodways of southeastern Kentucky has given you a taste of what makes this cuisine so special. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe for more food and culture content, and let me know in the comments which southeastern Kentucky dish you'd most like to try. or if you have your own family recipes to share. Until next time, happy cooking and happy eating, y'all. Oh, and if someone could send me some sausage, I'm really craving some biscuits and gravy.